host of 180, Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone. I am Steve Savant. We're broadcasting live from the heart of Phoenix, Arizona on KXXT Family Values Radio. And I also want to welcome our online audience on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And I want to give a big shout out to Beyond Fear to Freedom, one of the best Christ-centered fellowships that provide a safe and loving community for women in recovery. Just go out to their site and check them out for all the things that they offer. And there's some good ones. And Friday night's my fave. If you're not doing anything Friday night, they have food and fellowship from 5:30 to 6:15. Child care is provided. And then after that, they have their main message where they split the guys and the gals up. I just highly recommend, if you're listening to this story that we have this week with Jesse, I just want you to know, listen, there's hope and help for you. People that have been there, done that, and have found huge deliverance and fixing in the Lord's name. Hey, it's just an awesome place, and these girls that run it are fantastic. Hey, listen, if you want to write me, my email, steve@180uturn.com. That's steve@180youturn. Well, we're day 3 with Jesse Dalla. I have to say,
getting better.
It's not going to get better, not yet. But if you say, Steve, I'm just coming into the Wednesday show, well, listen, go hop out back out and watch this in succession. Jesse's story is actually it's just a grief. Honestly, the front end of your story it's like all of us. Our stories are bad. Before we met the Lord, we're hopeless without Him. But I want you to listen to this story these next 3 days and get caught up, so that when you hit tomorrow and you hear about his conversion story and how he came to the Lord, you just say, "I get it. Maybe I should do that." So I just want to encourage you, Jesse. When we left, we've talking about the combination. The cocktail of meth and heroin together, right? Is brutal because they actually go in the wrong directions, right? One's a high, one's a down. I mean, it's screwing with. I can't imagine the overall physiological impact that it has on your body. And I'm wondering, maybe even today, are you still coming away from that time, or no? My body's really healed and it's taking a new turn.
No, there's still physiological scars. I have collapsed veins in my arms that don't work anymore because of shooting heroin. I also have, you'd have to look closely, but I have scars on my face from using meth and picking at my face that weren't there prior to doing that, and teeth too. It affects your teeth.
Well, as we were sharing before we came into the third show today, I was talking to Jesse about my first time in jail when they used to partition the drug users from the regular population, and I saw a gal in there who I thought was probably in her early 40s. That was my guess. And so I got to kind of know her. She's trying to flee her addictions. She's still not sure about letting God take care of it. She's still in a quandary. But I thought she was 42, 43. She turned out to be 25.
Wow.
Now you tell me, how heavy a toll does meth take on your physical body, even your outward appearance?
Yeah, it can. Meth especially can make you age 20 years. Make your hair all thin and your teeth fall out and your cheeks get gaunt and your face get gone, and sometimes when it happens, it's irreversible.
It's to me, if you're listening to this and you say, Steve, I'm there right now, you still have time to pull out. I mean, you're nose diving straight to earth and crashing. I want you to find remedy and relief. And again, I advertise some of the people that can help you out. Well, now, you can't be a perfect record in shoplifting, right?
Right.
Sooner or later, at the level that you're ripping off retail, right, you're going to make a mistake. You're going to make something. You're going to make a slip up. And finally, you got arrested for shoplifting.
Yeah, they got wise to what I was doing, and after I got arrested the first time, many arrests followed thereafter, and I got arrested, probably 5 times for misdemeanor shoplifting. They gave me 2 weeks in jail, 30 days in jail.
Well, wait a minute. Let's go to the first time. They gave you a slap on the hand.
Yeah,
they didn't even take you to jail. They just gave you a ticket. How do you get it? Wait, I'm sorry. I guess I'm from Chicago, and this doesn't make sense to me. How do I get a ticket for stealing? Usually you're going down for at least a week or a weekend or whatever, right?
Yep.
Even if it's your first misdemeanor. Now we're handing tickets to guys who are shoplifting?
Yep. I was at Walmart, and I got arrested at Walmart, and the cop came, and just a ticket with the promise to appear to court that I never showed up for.
Okay, so now you've started to go to jail, and what jail? What Maricopa jail are you going to?
Durango jail.
Durango.
Yep.
Oh, been there many years.
Yep.
And I used to do the warehouses too.
Yep.
Yeah, down in there, as well as other pods in that area. When you're going there, and I can tell these people this because I've done this before, but I want you to tell them, how good is the food in that jail?
It's the worst food that you'll ever eat in your entire life.
And by the way, I just want to say, I was hungry. I forgot to pack my lunch. The officer says, "Here, I'll give you what they got." I figured, well, how bad could it be? It was bad.
Yeah.
So I have to say, it's the worst. And I want to encourage us because I was at a major facility where they use a deterrent, food as a deterrent. When you go down the hole, they give you water, and they give you this thing called the loaf. And I had never heard about this. And I came in one day, and they were cooking it. And the officer says, "Would you?" And not knowing that I was being tricked, and he said, "Steve, would you like to try what the guys try and say?" He told me they were in the hole, and they give them this, and it looked good. It looked like a piece of fruitcake or whatever. It was the worst tasting. It came out of my mouth so fast, I can't tell you. So it's a major league issue. If you're going to do time in the hole, this is not what you want to eat. But
Right.
Food in jail is terrible. By the way, living conditions.
Yeah, living conditions are terrible too.
Well, I'm just trying to compare, hey, you're in Durango versus being under a bridge.
Yeah, you don't have to live in the elements.
Yes.
But you're detoxing. You don't have access to your drugs. Everyone's sick. It's very cramped. And you're in a cell with 4 other people.
And how crazy are your cellmates?
There's all sorts of walks of life.
Right.
There's people with schizophrenia. There's people that are thieves. There's people that have anger problems. All sorts of things happen in there. And there's politics that come into it.
Mm-hmm. And when you mean politics, you mean the inside politics between just inmates or inmates and staff?
Both. So the main thing is between the inmates. The way the jail and the prisons function is 1920s, 1930s, 1940s racial segregation,
mm-hmm.
where if you're white, you eat with whites. If you're Mexican, you eat with Mexicans. If you're black, you eat with blacks. You associate with people of your own race, and that's mandated by, the more violent people
mm-hmm.
Inmates in the prison. So you don't really have any choice in the matter.
When you went to prison, it's highly claustrophobic.
Yeah.
It could be really, especially if you're already paranoid on dope, this is just going to add to it. And there's not going to be any withdrawals here. Is that not so? There's not going to be any time for withdrawal. They're going to take you down and take you out. They're going to put you in jail.
No, they don't give you any medicine. They don't help you at all with your withdrawal. If it's a heroin-related withdrawal, they let you suffer through it.
Mm-hmm. How tough is it to go through it?
Yeah, it almost makes you want to stop doing what you're doing.
See, I'm going to stop you there. Almost,
yeah.
But not quite. See, this is the thing that if the public is listening to this, right, and they go, I'd be so sick,
yeah,
and I would say that I'm done, and you'd make a promise to yourself when you left jail, right? You make a promise to yourself, that's it, that was my last night, but
right.
No.
The nature of addiction is that you keep telling yourself that you can do it and you could control it. And when you get out, you test the waters again, and you figure out that no, you can't, and you become addicted again. And then you go back to jail, and you get out, and you try the same thing. The point is, it requires a greater intrinsic change
mm-hmm.
than just the suffering that jail provides.
Drug addiction is so super spiritual.
Yep.
It cannot. We have nothing in the PhDs of psychology that be able to figure this out.
Mm-hmm. And
until we figure this out, we're just going to be running ourselves about spending billions on addiction without any results. Finally, though, we're not going to just do jail now after 5 or 6 times. You crossed over to the big time, and you're going to be sent to state prison.
Yeah, I got caught one too many times, and they said the last time I got arrested for shoplifting, they said, "Hey, you've done this too many times. You're not getting out this time. You're going to prison." Mm-hmm. It was a shock that I wouldn't be getting out of jail. I'd be losing my freedom for a period of 2.5 to 3 years.
Well, the first offer was almost 5.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, 5 years.
Yeah, they scared me at first with, 5 years, and then
And how old were you when this happened?
I was 19. Yeah, 19.
Yeah, this is, and I just want to say, but we talked about when this started at 17,
Yeah.
right? I just want to go to when people have intense addictions and the things that Jesse has experienced, the thing that shocks me the most is the compressed timeline.
Mm-hmm.
It's so short. It's like, if you would have told me all these things, I would have said, well, that's over 5, maybe an 8, 10-year period. This is an intense lifestyle that's compressed, hard to bucket, hard to get out of it. And it's so intense, you just think you've lived a whole lifetime in 2 years.
Yep.
Would you not say that's true?
Yeah. It all happened so fast. It felt like it lasted forever, but it happened so fast.
Well, listen, when we come back from the break, we're going to continue in Jesse's story in prison. It's a pain in the neck to talk about, but we got to talk about it. Hopefully somebody will hear this and say, hey, I am out of here. That's the last story I'm going to hear from these guys. I want to change. Hopefully you don't have to go down the road. So many of our guests have gone the road to finally figure out that God's got the answer and he's the only one that can fix your fix. I'll be right back after this break with Jesse.
You know the road to recovery can be difficult, but you don't have to travel it alone. Every Friday night, like-minded women gather together to share a meal and their stories how they broke the destructive cycles in their lives by the power of God and moved on to a new life in Christ. For more information about Friday nights, just go out to their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. If you can't get to BFF on Friday nights, or you don't live in the Phoenix area, you can stay connected by joining BFF's Subscribe Tribe, where you receive their weekly study guide, so you can track with them online. Just sign up today on BFF's website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. And don't forget to listen to BFF's weekly video podcast with Debbie G. and Sheridan. Their own life experiences and their biblical influence will overhaul your thinking, your identity, and your future. They'll keep you encouraged with some great insight and biblical truth. Just friend them on Facebook or go out to their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. BFF, where you might just discover a best friend forever.
All this week we're unpacking Jesse Dalla story, a remarkable story, and you don't want to miss any episodes, so you can hop out to YouTube after we broadcast on KXXT and watch them in chronology so you get the idea, the order, and everything we're talking about. I find it amazing that God tries to use prison. He uses jail. He uses everything he can do to interrupt our trips and stop us from completely proceeding on the road to hell that we're on. It blows my mind, honestly. And if you try to fix the fix that God fixed for you, it only gets worse. So I just really exhort you, if you're listening to this show and you say, man, my story is Jesse's story. Well, I just tell you, only God can fix what you're into, and only God can deliver you, and only God can set your feet and reestablish, by the way, the original timeline that you should have been living on day one. Jesse, let's talk about it. Well, we're now in prison. You just said it was segregation, so you got to kind of stay with your own kind, as they say.
Yeah.
And you're doing not 5 years, though. You got down to what, 2.5, I think it was?
2.5.
2.5. So you're doing, it's still, though, 30 months in prison is prison. There's politics. I think I'll leave it to you. I think the food is better in state prison than it is in jail.
It's much better in prison.
Much better, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and by the way, the feds, as I always say, the federal food, when I was up there and we ate there, that was actually very good food. I used to say, if you're going to screw up, you should just do fed crime, not any state or county jail. All right, we all agree that the cuisine in the county jail is the worst of all time. When you're sitting there doing it, you just want to get out. But you're doing 30 months without any heroin, 30 months, no weed, no meth. And you dried out. How long does it take you to dry out?
It takes about a month to really start feeling normal again.
Mm-hmm. And are they parking you with anybody that's been through what you, or it just could be an assignment?
Yeah, almost everyone there in prison has a drug problem. Mm-hmm. You're of the extreme minority if you don't have some sort of drug problem. So we're all in the same boat. We all have addiction issues. We all have an addiction history, but we're not. A large portion of us, at least, aren't in the recovery boat yet. We're still addicts, but we just don't have our drugs for the most part.
Yeah, there's much muling going on in prison, do you think?
Yeah, there is drugs in prison, and I was a part of that. But fortunately for me, I only did some of the less hard stuff. I didn't use heroin in prison. Marijuana, spice was another thing. If you start to get into heroin in prison, that's a dangerous thing if you can't pay your bills when they're due, because there's nowhere to run.
Yeah, I would say that would be my first thought is, when you're drying out and you don't want to re-engage, I would think, right? Now you have another whole political system that is going to, there's no delay in payments. And you just said that, and that would frighten me. That would be enough for me to stay clear of all of it.
It was enough for me, but that's not true for a lot of people.
Many.
It's very difficult when there's someone shooting heroin right next to you in your cell to not want to participate in that if you're an addict. So, man, I sweated sleepless nights just thinking about it, but not realizing that I didn't want to get into a dire predicament because I couldn't afford it.
All the things we've been talking about the last 3 days, it sounds so sorrowful, and it is. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, your mom on the outside becomes a Christian.
Yep.
This could be the big turning point for you. Isn't it funny how sometimes people that we relate to, mom, dad, brother, sister, whatever, they get saved and it starts to affect others in the family. Now, your mom starts talking to you about the Lord.
She started sending me scriptures, writing me letters, talking about Jesus, and sending me words of encouragement.
And you going for it or whatever?
It always the story of Jesus always had an impact on me. I always thought he was someone to be honored and like a hero almost, like a superhero. But I didn't really get it. I remember speaking to a guy that was a Christian on the yard, and he tried to explain the different elements of faith and stuff, and I just couldn't understand like the concept of faith, and it just didn't make any sense to me. But it was a precursor.
There was a girl that I met in state prison that acronymed everything. It didn't matter what it was, and her acronym for faith was Fantastic Adventures in Trusting Him. Right? I used to love that all the time. She said, well, I had fear, but then I realized it was false evidences appearing real. She always had acronyms for everything. They're fantastic. All right, so your mom's sending you scriptures. Any of these verses getting in there, touching you at all?
Yeah. Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness. The story of Jesus and his begging for forgiveness of those who were crucifying him. I always connected with that as something that was so powerful.
But I say, okay, now why though? Why is that touching? You're a young man.
Because I always desired to be an honorable person, a person that had responsibility and had integrity. But I'd given that all up, and I seen that in Jesus, and it was desirable because of where I was in life, but I just couldn't see it happening for me.
Okay, why do you think you disqualified yourself from even considering it for yourself?
I think it had to do with the fact that I was 19, I was in prison, I was surrounded by a bunch of people that were not good influences.
So you're not going to chapel?
A few times, but no, not regularly. And I just didn't have any hope. I didn't think I could change. I never worked a job. I didn't have any money. I just didn't have a lot going on for me.
When you got out, did you go right back into it again?
So yeah, I thought I did develop a new identity in prison, but it wasn't an identity that was going to be successful. It was one where, oh, you're a man, you're a tough guy because you've been to prison. Everyone in prison has that kind of similar ideology. And I thought that would kind of carry me when I got out of prison, but that didn't work. I got out of prison on a probation tail, meaning I had probation to do after I got out of prison, and I went right back to the same halfway house that I first started using heroin at.
When that happened, you just got right back into it.
This time I became heavily addicted to methamphetamine as opposed to heroin.
Why did you make the choice? What was the drug choice for?
I think I started using it at the halfway house again, and they were doing meth, and I really developed an affinity for it. And I knew that heroin was such a monkey on your back with the withdrawal symptoms, and meth didn't have that kind of. It didn't have the as worth withdrawals as heroin did.
Yeah, it's always changing. It's always challenging the level of poison that I'm going to get involved in. I mean, no doubt about it. Okay, so I'm out on the street. What tips you off to go to rehab finally? What does it say? Hey, I'm willing to do this.
So yeah, I was back in full-blown addiction. The difference was I was on probation, so I couldn't keep continuing to use drugs if I didn't want to go back to prison, because she was going to send me back if I continued to use. I had to drop UAs. I was failing to do all those things. The other difference was I'd gotten out. I was using drugs. I was on probation. I was back on the streets, but I wasn't able to steal anymore because I was so afraid of getting caught stealing again. And I would just, I just got out of prison for stealing. If I got caught again, they were going to give me a lot of time. And so I wasn't able to maintain my addiction like I was like I was able to previously. And so I was high sometimes, but a lot of the times I wasn't. And because of that, because I wasn't high consistently, I was in a lot of pain. I was suffering a lot. I was sleeping in the library park, face down in the dirt, just feeling terrible. And my family, who had reconnected with me in prison, were sending me these words of encouragement, and the conglomeration of all those factors made me finally come to the point where I said, okay, perhaps I need help now.
So what are the next steps in getting help? I mean, how did you talk to your mom? Did you know where to go?
I went to a detox center in downtown Phoenix called Community Bridges, which offers free detox for people that all in the valley, 24/7 service. And I went there to get help, but to also to avoid my probation officer violating me and sending me back to prison. So I went there. I was completely half in, half out of my mind on meth. And there was a worker there, a woman, who had graduated the Phoenix Rescue Mission's Changing Lives Center program, the women's program for Phoenix Rescue Mission. And she was working there as a peer support specialist, someone that helps you find a place when you're going to exit detox. And she pulled me in her office and she told me, she sat me down, and this is where God started to interact in my life. She told me how she felt in her addiction. Not necessarily a testimony of events that had happened, but how she felt in her addiction, about herself and her self-worth, and how she felt bad about herself. And it was almost exactly how I felt about myself. And it was like a spiritually profound moment. And she told me about the Phoenix Rescue Mission's men's program. And the next day I left, and I went over there and I joined the program.
I find it huge that somebody can relate to you, almost articulate your exact feelings. That's what's cool. Hey, you will not want to miss tomorrow. It's all about the conversion. I love Holy Thursday. Hey, listen, if you want to check out the BFF meeting at 5:30 to 6:15 this Friday, food, fellowship, and childcare provided. The men's meeting, right afterwards, the men and gals both have their own meetings. And remember, for more information, just go to beyondfeartofreedom.org. So until next time, I'm Steve Savan, and remember, no one's outside the reach of God. No, not one.